They were about 7, 8, 9 feet tall. They were larger than people, and I could see that they were wearing like beautiful white kind of like drapey like capes or cloaks. I'm consciously aware of about 150 of my past lives.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everybody. Welcome back, and welcome back to my guest, Wendy Williams. Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Heather.
It is so great to have you here. I was mesmerized by your near-death experiences that we heard about in part one. And for those of you listening, if you want a link to that, just see where it says more right below the video. You can click on that and that'll give you a link to that in the description there. But you can also stay right here because, Wendy, I have a ton of questions because you raised so many intriguing points when we were talking. And one of the first things that was triggered in my brain is when you were talking about all these angels were surrounding you in the bathroom during your first near-death experience. And you said it really changed my belief system. So in what way?
Well, I was a casual Christian before this happened when I was 36. I did believe in God. I did, see God as this loving, amazing divine presence and as a creator. But I didn't really, I wasn't on a spiritual path in any way, shape, or form. And angels to me were like a lovely concept, but more like, oh, so beautiful in art, so, wonderful on Christmas cards, but do they really exist? I'd had my MBA degree since I was 22 years old, and my husband was also an MBA, so pretty left-brained, logical people. And as I said, so, that's kind of where my belief system is. But this just takes it out of the realm of when you've got direct experience like this, it just changes everything to understand the power and the majesty of angels and, what they can do and help with. It was just incredible.
And did they look like how we picture angels? Were they bigger? Were they smaller?
They were about 7, 8, 9 feet tall. They were larger than people, and I could see that they were wearing like beautiful white kind of like drapey like capes or cloaks. And as I mentioned, I could see the very bottom of their wings. Their wings were so big that they would have been dragging on the floor if they were walking, but they were just floating a few inches off the floor, but there just was so much light coming from them. I could not see features at all. I didn't need to. They were clearly angels. And it just blew my mind. It just blew my belief system open. It's like, oh my gosh. And to just feel, it just makes me want to cry to know that I got that kind of assistance. It just was a really big deal.
You and two other guests I've talked to just within the past, I would say, couple of weeks, have talked about meeting with Archangel Michael. And I just thought it was interesting that all three of you met him. Now, sometimes we have a hard time as humans realizing that things work very differently there. And people say, well, how can, Michael be here and be there and help this person and that person? Can you help us understand that concept a little better?
Yes, I think his energy is incredibly large, just like God's is, just like Jesus's is, the ascended masters, the angels. They have they have so much energy and they have the ability to be so many different places at once, helping with so many different things. So I think that that's a concept that's foreign to us in our human form, where there's one of me in one place doing one thing. But now that Earth is raised her vibration and frequency, and the collective is too, humankind is too. I think we're starting to, bring back more of our energy. For instance, I have people tell me on a regular basis, "You were in my dream last night and you were helping me." And that's just amazing to me. And I love hearing that we can be helping each other during the dream time and that sort of thing. And I'm like, wow. And sometimes I'll hear it from multiple people, and they're referring to the same night. And I'm like, well, as far as I was concerned, I was having a great night's sleep.
But you were busy.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And as I said, I'm in human form, but we just don't understand the full beauty and majesty of our souls, and of what the soul energy is like, for angels and archangels. So I think that's a piece of what's going on.
And that brings up another question also, because we get very attached to our bodies. And I found it very interesting that you looked back and you saw your body as temporary housing, and you referred to yourself as she instead of
Right.
me. So explain that a little bit more, what that feels like.
It just, um, as I said, it just took me a moment to like kind of work it out because I knew when I had popped out of my body and left my body and was in soul form as my higher self, as the true me, the real full me, I was very clear on who that was. And and hearing myself using the third person about Wendy and looking at the body, that's how I was able to realize, oh, yes, very important, because as I said, the body houses our soul, but it's not about the body. Yes, we're meant to treat it well, and do everything we can to be healthy and enjoy our life. Our body needs to be respected and taken good care of, to go the distance and have enjoyment in life, and hope to experience that good health. But it certainly doesn't define who we are at the soul level. The higher self, the soul, is just so much bigger, so much more.
The other thing that you got to experience, which very few humans get to experience except for astronauts, is you were able to look back on the Earth.
Mhm.
I imagine that in itself is kind of life changing.
It was like the most beautiful, like, Google Earth doesn't do it justice. There's been a few films, maybe Interstellar, different ones that kind of give you that beautiful astronaut view. But yeah, it really was compelling, because I could see the blues of the water, I could see the greens, and I just could see things for that brief instance, and just hearing, we need to take better care of our home. And I did just have that feeling, we've got to take better care of our mother, of Mother Earth, because she's supporting us on her body. And then it's like, then I just needed to, I needed to keep on going. But yeah, it made me very grateful, to be here, on this beautiful planet.
The other thing that was really interesting, not the other because there's many, many that were interesting, but one other thing that was interesting is you had an escalator appear in front of you and you were able to ride the escalator. And I found it interesting that it seems like your spirit was exhausted because you just sort of flopped, you said, onto
Yes.
the escalator.
Yes.
Is that? Because I can see the human body being worn out,
Yes.
but the spirit
Yes.
surprised me.
I think because I was still, attached to my human body at some level, because the body had to stay viable. And I believe just my life force energy. I mean, I was bleeding out. was just being depleted. So, there was an aspect of that I was carrying with me as the soul going home of, can I go home and get this incredible infusion of energy? I don't believe I would have made it through that surgery the next day without that incredible um, journey home. I think that happened very purposefully to help me survive and to give me the amazing opportunity to decide, am I going to stay at home? Am I going to pass on, or am I going to come back and engage in life and figure out what the heck my purpose is?
The soul family you met, they were these orbs of light. And I've heard people tell me in the comments that they're concerned that they won't recognize people if they're all these orbs of light. Is that an issue?
You know exactly who they are, because every soul has a unique soul energy or signature. You will absolutely do not be concerned. Don't waste any time worrying about that. We waste just too much time worrying, many of us. And you know exactly who they are. Okay, here's an example in our 3D reality that you may have had. Many people have experienced deja vu, and you meet someone and you're like, oh, I can't wait to catch up. I just love this person. And then you kind of catch yourself and you're like, wait a minute, we met 15 seconds ago. Well, that may very well be, someone that you know as a soul, that you know at a very, very deep level. I had that experience profoundly with the man the gentleman, the soulmate who woke me up spiritually. So you will absolutely recognize them. So we feel it in our heart. We just know.
You saw your soul family, you saw angels. Were there any other visuals around you that you saw?
Yes, I sensed we were standing on beautiful clouds and light, just so much light. I just sensed anything and everything that was there that we could create and want and need, because we're powerful creators and co-creators. But many of us forget that, and we just let ourselves fall down into this victim place or this martyr place of, why do these things happen to me all the time? Why is this so hard? And when we make that decision, or ask the question, why is this happening for me, instead of why is this happening to me? It just shifts everything. So I was seeing that, and I knew everything was there. And again, just so much light. It had like a golden tinge to it, but it was changing. I couldn't wait to go and explore, as I said, which I think is why it's part of why they caught me up in that hug, because I knew I sensed if I just had run on further and gone, I wouldn't have had the choice to have come back. So that's why it was like, okay, we need to stop her right here so she can make a decision, so she can make an intelligent, best decision versus just, running without thinking. Cause like, I'm home.
Let's talk about that hug, because with that one hug, you said you felt no judgment. You felt we were perfect souls, that we can't do anything wrong, that we're never separated. There was unconditional love. I mean, that sounds amazing.
It was a really big deal. And one of the things it showed me is we're meant to love ourselves unconditionally. And we are often our harshest critic about the most inane, ridiculous things, and just so unkind to ourselves. So learning to give that unconditional love to ourselves. Does that mean we're perfect? Oh, heck no. Does that mean we make mistakes? Absolutely. It's just part of it's part of what we experience. It's part of how we learn and are given the opportunity to progress. But it was like having my empty gas tanks just filled to overflowing with that energy of that unconditional love. And also, when we love and accept ourselves, we're going to be doing that with other people too. We're going to be so much, less judgmental. And many of us were raised with a lot of judgment, or felt like we didn't fit in, or have had painful experiences in this lifetime that we just haven't come to peace with, and just need that inner child healing, need to heal that shadow self, that part of us that we least like. And that's my belief of a big part of why we come back again and again. I believe it's a free will choice. Yes, certainly we can stay at home and be doing many interesting things there. But we're not going to progress like we do when we choose to bravely incarnate, whether it's on Earth, on another planet, into another dimension, wherever it might be, because our soul is just gathering up all those experiences. And then we go home and we heal them, we debrief from them, and we also, the divine, I mean, God learns from that as we learn ourselves and as we express as souls. So, there's just so much going on with it all.
You mentioned past lives.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you picked up while you were there, that there are past lives, or is it something that you figured out later after you came back?
It became apparent to me while I was there, because these concepts like soul family and free will, it's like so much of the knowledge that we all have as souls came back to me, because my belief is we agree to, we choose to come here, and we're going to work on certain lessons and meet certain people and have certain experiences. And, you can only plan so much, and then it's going to play out the way it plays out. But we also agree that we're going to have this profound amnesia wipe, which is more profound for some people than others. I mean, some people always remember who they are at the soul level. Because we know that as children when we come in, and we just, the imaginary, what our parents, or other people, grandparents, babysitters, whoever can call our imaginary friends. I believe those are guides. And we just have the sense of them around us when we're small children. But then we get kind of conditioned out of that because we get into school full time, and just, can often be told by parents, because our parents just want us to, fit in and not be made fun of by the other kids. And they're like, yeah, don't talk about that. Or we can be told, don't talk about that. Or we can just be really shushed by our parents telling us there's no such thing, versus just asking us, oh, tell me more about that. What was that like? And we can just shut children down pretty quickly. But I believe that veil of amnesia is for very good reasons. It's for us to be willing to look at things with excitement and through the eyes of a child, like it's the first time. Whereas if we had our full soul memory, many of us might not be willing to try something, because it's like, oh, I've done that 500 times. It never worked before. Why should I try it again? Well, because this time you're going to figure it out. This time you're going to succeed, because, we're trying it from like all these minute, different angles. And again, just to have, that freshness to it. So and also it would be overwhelming for most people to recall all of their past lives, or a large number of them. So my belief is that's why that information is normally captured in our book of life. Some call it the book of love. And all our history is there. And if we need to have it come through, we can, that comes through spontaneously for some people, via meditation, or just get triggered by a person or a place, or via a dream, or it might be that you're working with someone, you're choosing to, have a past life regression, or to have an energy healing, because that you have fears and phobias. Maybe you have anxiety, depression, pain, feeling stuck. Those are all great reasons to have an energy healing. And I find most of the people that do come to me for past life healing, there's very, very good reasons, and it just changes our life so positively when we can let go of that energy that's not serving us and feel happier and healthier, and that our life has purpose, because everyone wants to feel that.
And you addressed earlier one of the concerns that people have with past lives, because I've heard people say, well, if my loved one moves on to a past life before I get to heaven, I won't see them again.
Right. If they incarnate into a new life and then we go home, you can't miss each other, because there's always our soul energy, our soul essence is so large, so vibrant. There's always some of it at home with the light, whatever your term is. Some say heaven, summerlands, nirvana, the universe, whatever your belief system is, there's always, an aspect of it there, with that divine creator. I'll call it home or the light for simplicity. So you will not miss each other. So don't be putting energy into worrying about that either.
And you actually guide people through past life regressions, and I want to get to that in a moment. But first, I want to ask you, so I assume that means you remember some of your past lives. And if so, are there a couple that you can just share with us?
Certainly, there's I'm consciously aware of about 150 of my past lives. And it's not about the numbers. It's just, it depends on the person. I'm also aware of how many lives I've chosen to have, including both on Earth and other planets and other dimensions. It's been about around 2,600 total, about half of them, so around 1,300 on Earth. But what's important is what's coming up for that individual. So for some of the people, that I work with, there might be, one or two or three, maybe there's a dozen, maybe they're aware of a couple dozen. Some are aware of a profound number. It's whatever is right for that person. So please just try not to compare. Just know what's right for you. Some of the ones that have been the most meaningful to me, Heather, have been the hardest to accept. And but such profound healing and freeing up has come up. I'll give you an example of one. It's the most recent book, Regression Healing 2, Joe and Marilyn. And I just was having, about 10 years ago, I started having profound experiences with Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm Canadian. I mean, yes, they're so well known that, even though they were both Americans and, predate me, when I was born in my time frame, certainly they were so well known. I was aware of them, but I just started having profound experiences with both of them. And the spiritual teacher that I was working with suddenly texted me one day, and she said, Joe wants to talk with you. Are you ready? And I'm looking at the phone going, ugh. Am I ready? No. Am I supposed to do this? Yes. I better get ready. So I went and meditated for half an hour and spoke with the Joe DiMaggio's higher self, his soul. He died in 1999. And so what he told me was hard to take in. I didn't really want to deal with it. So what I did, being a past life regressionist myself, was I went and had a past life regression. And I specifically chose a friend that I knew she was a new friend at the time. I knew she was a very gifted regressionist. She studied with Dolores Cannon for quantum healing hypnotherapy. She was very level-headed in everyday life too. Very smart gal, but very connected to the divine. And I asked her if she'd do a session for me. And I also knew she wasn't a sports fan. And that was important for me. So that was kind of my checklist to, not be trying not to bias. And and then it's best to go into a healing session like that. Your higher self and guides architect it for you. Whatever is most needed that will be most beneficial to you in your life now is what's going to come up. So it's not like you go in saying, hey, I want to talk about Joe DiMaggio and what's my connection there. I mean, I said nothing about him or Marilyn, but yet that very first past life regression session that I had with her 10 years ago was I went straight into my past life as Joe DiMaggio, and just profound information and healing came up. And again, it was a lot to take in because he was so well known. And I'm like, oh gosh, what do I do with this? Here's one of the most, well known figures, not only of his time, but still now. Um, and but the healing that came through was tremendous. And I was just so grateful for it. I received both physical and emotional healing from his lifetime because we were actually what's called a past parallel life, meaning I was born in 1961 and Joe DiMaggio and I, as Wendy Rose Williams, same soul, were both alive at the same time for about 40 years. So, and that's possible because, again, our higher self, our soul has so much energy and can choose as a strategy to incarnate into different lifetimes. Usually there's a lot of contrast between them. And that was very true for me and DiMaggio. I mean, here he is, American hero and athlete and, very well known, and me, Canadian, small. Again, he's really, tall, big guy, and just, such contrast. I'm like the least athletic person on the planet. So lots of contrast, so lots of learning. But then it took me 8 years to be willing to share that information. And I had so many more sessions. I went back to other hypnotherapists. I went to all different hypnotherapists over a period of years. Again, never mentioned Joe or Marilyn. I just wanted to see what would come up. And I would do one or two past life regression sessions as the client a year, again and again and again. That's what was coming up. And the turning point was I had a young woman in Europe referred to me for a past life regression. And she had profound memories that appeared to be Marilyn Monroe. And she was struggling with anxiety. She was struggling with sadness and depression, and it healed. It was such a difference for her as it was for me to receive, that healing that we were just so ready for and we're just so craving. So that's what happened. So I shared her two sessions with me in the book also.
But to think that you were somebody famous, isn't that kind of the cliche when it comes to past lives? And that is where we will pick up in part 3. So we'll hear Wendy's answer to that and so much more. How about a life on another planet? Do you remember any of those that you can share?
Yes, I do. I also recall lives in other dimensions.
Now that's interesting.
Yes. So an example of other dimensions are.
So that is ahead in part 3. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the things that she already talked about. Angels. She talked about soul family. Let me start again now that my cat is gone. Wendy also talked about having thousands of lives, and some of those here on Earth, some of those elsewhere. All of that is really wild. It may be too out there for you, and you can let me know that. Just always do it respectfully. Maybe it's something that really intrigues you. Maybe some of you even remember something like that. Whatever your comments are, go ahead and leave those. Otherwise, just go ahead and put "made it" if you'd prefer to not leave a comment. I always appreciate that too. And I appreciate all of your likes. By the way, go to my playlist if you want to see other episodes that I've done. They are all there, and there's always a link in the description. So thank you, everybody. I hope you'll stick around and come back for part 3. Take care.
Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.